Every executive condo launch creates excitement, and every launch will meet buyers who would tell us, if only we knew this earlier. So we all know that ECs play by a different set of rules.
So in this video, we're going to share with you 3 critical things about EC that you must know, so you can actually decide with clarity and not regret. The very first must know is the attraction of EC is actually not about the hype. It's actually something built into the system. So why we say this, what we mean is basically ECs are designed by policy to make them more affordable than private condos. The lower land cost, the financing rules, the eligibility structure all work together to create the advantage. And ECs are government subsidized land sold to developer at a lower land cost. Yet you still get condo-style facilities at a lower entry price, and like what ex-minister Kao says, it is like offering you a Lexus at a Corolla price.
So the lower land cost creates the initial pricing gap between the ECs as well as the private condos. So if we take a look at this chart over here, we actually have that pink graph that represents the EC pricing, and the blue graph represents the new launch pricing. So you'll notice that the price gap between our EC as well as the new launch private pricing, there is a gap. From 2022 onwards, the gap actually increases from 200 to 400 PSF, and now we are looking at $600 to $800 PSF. And the reason is because there is a difference in this land cost. And the next question you will ask is, will the price gap between the EC and the private condo stay this way or widen further? What do you think, Vera?
I mean, to determine this, we have to look at the land cost of some of the upcoming outside central region launches. So if you just have a look at this in the East Bay Shore, the upcoming launch is possibly going to start from about 2,700 per square foot. If we move on to Chuan Grove, it could also possibly launch from about 2,700 per square foot. Then moving closer to the east, Bedok Rise government land sales, it's expected maybe to launch somewhere between 2006 to 2007 per square foot. So if you look at it, if EC now they are priced at about 1,800 per square foot, and the OCR private condo are possibly launching at 2006 to 2,800 per square foot, don't you think that the price gap will continue to widen? And you can say that for these lands, they're at a more prime location located near MRT station, as compared to EC, they tend to be a bit further away. Location may not be as prime, but from the way we see how land prices are going, we do think that this price gap will continue to stay wide or widen gradually rather than narrowing.
For EC-wise, the key advantages actually goes beyond the pricing. For the HDB upgraders, there is no additional buyer stamp duties payable, as ABSD is fully remitted. Which means that as for HDB homeowners, you definitely have to sell away your HDB when you purchase the EC. However, the good thing is that you do not need to sell your HDB immediately. You can still continue to stay in the very familiar environment until the EC TOPs. And thirdly is the EC financing structure. For this structure, we actually have both the normal payment scheme, which a lot of you are very familiar with, and for EC-wise, we have the deferred payment scheme. So upgraders, you can actually choose to go with this deferred payment scheme, which allow you to do a lower initial outlay, which is this 20% required, and the remaining amount you can actually pay upon before the ECTOPs after you sell your HDB. That is where your sales proceed comes in. This definitely helps you to improve your cash flow as well as your planning ahead.
And why does it attract the first-time home buyers? Firstly, it's because of the better affordability in terms of the monthly mortgage. Since there's a cap of $16,000, with that, the monthly installment will be lower due to a lower loan amount. Furthermore, if your income is 12,000 and below, there's actually up to a 30,000 housing grant. Also, it's a one move and then it can be a long-term home. So what happens is that by purchasing an EC, you actually get the condo-style facilities from the start. You do not have to upgrade again shortly after moving in, especially for families. So there's actually lesser lifestyle disruption, maybe to your kids, moving in and out. And lastly, there's a better long-term flexibility in purchasing an EC. Why? Because EC sits closer to a private market over time, especially when it's out in the resale market. So this makes upgrading to another private property more achievable later, since the pricing jump from an EC compared to HDB tends to be smaller. So the attraction of EC is actually not the hype, it is already built into the system by the government.
So the second must know is that with EC, it's not about choosing the wrong projects, but the most regret actually comes from waiting. So why do we say so? If we take a look at this chart, the land prices for EC has been rising, and the new ECs that is launching every time never gets cheaper. So while waiting for one new launch after another, it really does mean a higher entry price, smaller unit sizes, and definitely a tighter affordability. So if we can actually choose to buy in earlier, why not? Which is why people do say, if only we knew this earlier, right? And then we can get to lock in a cheaper land cost, which definitely protects our affordability. And in January this year, Simlian actually set a new record EC land price for the second parcel at the Woodlands Drive 17, which is at $794 PSF per plot ratio. So what do these numbers really mean for buyers?
So in order to understand that, let's first understand how a cheaper land price actually do not translate to a cheaper selling price. So let's just take, for example, Novo Place and Auto Place. Auto Place was launched slightly later, and the land cost was about $2 per square foot per plot ratio cheaper. But when the development was launched, you can see that Auto Place actually launched at an average per square foot of about $112 higher compared to Novo Place. And if we look at a 3-bedroom unit, that translates to a price difference of about $148,000. That means out of your pocket, you have to come up with an additional $148,000 to purchase a 3-bedroom. And if you're looking at something bigger, a 4-bedroom unit, that is about $67,000 difference. So although the land price was cheaper, but you have to understand that you're actually paying a higher price. And if you look at Novo Place versus Orel, now Novo Place was actually slightly cheaper than Orel. The land is about $18 per square foot per plot ratio cheaper. So does it mean that when you purchase, the per square foot price is actually slightly higher? In this case, you can see that it's actually about $119 per square foot higher for Orel. And for a 3-bedroom, you are paying about $75,000 more. For a 4-bedroom, close to $100,000 more. With that, we can easily see how, although land prices are going up slightly, or maybe, to us, it's maybe $10, $20 more, but when it reflects into the actual purchase price, it is actually not so straightforward.
If you look at the future EC pricing, for example, in Senja Close, comparing to Costa Cabana, which is just launched very recently, Senja Close land cost, we have a difference of $42. How much more would this $42 mean, and how much will it affect the future prices? So with the rising land cost, could Costa Cabana be the last EC at this price here before new prices set in for EC? Let's have a quick look at the Costa Cabana, for example, which is really just launched very recently. For Costa Cabana, we have our new 3-bedroom that is starting around 1.5, and we have our 4-bedroom, which is starting from about 1.655. Our 5 bedrooms over here are fully sold at Costa Cabana.
So having seen how land costs actually translate to the final selling price, there are 2 very common mistakes that buyers make. Usually, they tend to over-focus on which EC is better. And in a sense, they then underestimate the cost of waiting. So with ECs, the bigger risk is often the waiting and not the choosing. So coming to the third must know, it's the limited supply and limited eligibility for executive condo. Now, executive condo opportunities are actually finite and not everyone qualifies forever. So let's first look at what is the main eligibility conditions for EC. Firstly, you must form a family nucleus that includes at least 1 SC and 1 SPR, or a SC, Singapore citizen, and a Singapore citizen. The monthly household income should not exceed 16,000, although there's actually some news out there saying that they may want to actually look at this income ceiling again and review, but we don't know when that's going to happen. Next, the ownership and interest in property in Singapore or overseas. You cannot own any other properties other than a HDB. And lastly, you should not have used more than 2 times of housing subsidies. Basically, you have to be a first timer or a second timer to be eligible to buy a EC.
So next, we want to take a look at the upcoming supply for the EC development this year. And the very first one that we are looking at very closely in February, March will be the at Tampines Street 95, which is Resale. Okay, so this unit, we have around a 572 unit. It is very close to the Tampines West downtown line, very close to Tampines Safra location. Secondly, we have over at Senja Close, we are looking at about 306 units in total over here. And then we have the Woodlands area, okay, which is very close to the Woodlands South TEL line. And over here, we are looking around 420 units. And lastly, we have over at the Sembawang Road, we are looking at about 265 units. You can take a look at the land shape here. It's a little bit more lengthy.
Yeah, it's a bit more odd, and actually this is the first low-rise EC. So if you
plot ratio,
yes, and if you look at the land bid price, you will likely be thinking, the rest are all above 700. Well, this is slightly below 700 per square foot per plot ratio.
Cheaper?
Could it be cheaper? We are not sure, but we actually think that because of this lower plot ratio, maybe developers are a little bit more uncertain, hence the lower land bid price. But it will not come cheap lah, because even at 692, we expect the launch maybe to be about 1,600, 1,700 per square foot. So having a look at what's going to launch in 2026, estimate of about 1,560 over units. Let's see what's going to launch in around 2027, 2028, so we can kind of know what are the supplies that's going to come up, right? So in the most recent launch, the one that was just bidded in January, the second plot at Woodlands Drive 17, there's about 560 units. The launch usually will be at least about 15 months from the time they bid, which will likely come around second quarter 2027. Following that, Miltonia Close, which has actually opened for tender already, there's about 430 units. For this, we kind of expect there to be a good number of developers who will bid on this lah, because one is near to the reservoir, there could be good reservoir view. Secondly, there are many BTOs in Yishun, so we do expect there to be a good number of upgraders. Even actually first timer could be looking at this area. Then comes Canberra Drive. We are looking at about 185 units. It's a lower plot ratio also, about 1.6, so we know it will be a lower rise development as well. And the last one for this year, likely going to launch around June 2026, is Sembawang Drive. So the land will be up for bid then, and there's about 450 units. With that, even with the upcoming land bids, we are looking at about 1,620 over units, and including the one in 2026 that's going to launch, we are looking at maybe about 3,100 units thereabouts. So not a lot, and don't forget, luck actually plays a very important role. Why? Because you are subjected to balloting. So while you are choosing an EC, the reality is that the EC is likely also choosing you. If you look at the success rate, we're just looking at Real at Tampines, there were a total of application, 1,700 over application for 760 units. Okay, and of that, if you look at the success rate, only 700, that means fully sold. 760 units fully sold. There's over 1,000 buyers that did not get any unit there.
Currently, what we have in the market right now is actually Costa Cabana, which is located at Pasir Ris, very near to the downtown east and walking distance over to the beach. So if you're looking at the EC right now, you can possibly take a look at this or give us a call. Otherwise, we have the upcoming ECs as we shared earlier, at Senja Close, at Woodlands. And if you look at all these ECs in this location, right, you'll notice that there's no other ECs that is really this close to the mall or the beach.
There will be one more.
One more.
Which is Tampines.
Oh, Tampines.
But we do expect it to be very hot, because why? It is pretty close to downtown line, which is a Tampines West Station, and just diagonally across it will be a mixed development that's upcoming. So with that, you are also pretty close to a mall.
I think this will be quite a hot.
Yeah, but what are the chances, right? Because luck plays a part, right? So whether you want to try waiting for that, or whether you want to look at what is existing and suitable for you, give us a call and then we can discuss further.
Given the unpredictability of an EC, are you still choosing which one to go for? Because for EC buying, it's really very much depends on your eligibility, the timing, as well as your affordability. Because unlike for BTOs, EC launches are not regular, they are not evenly spread. It very much depends on the government land sales, the planning cycles, as well as the market condition. We do see that some years that we have no EC launches at all, and not all regions would possibly have the EC as well, and possibly for many years too. So buyers in the market will often assume that there will always be another EC. I will just wait for the next EC to come, but in reality, the next EC would really be much pricier in a less preferred location. So timing and location are variables which buyers are unable to control. So the real question isn't which EC, it's whether you still qualify when the next one comes.
Having gone through the 3 must-knows, there is one additional consideration which we thought would be important for you to understand, that is your future buyer. So a lot of times when we are buying our first property, we are always thinking, should it be a HDB or should it be an EC? So imagine in 2015, you were considering one of these options. Let's say you have bought a BTO 5-room flat in Northeast Singapore. Let's say, for example, at the point of time, there was a launch at Fernvale Woods. The 5-room flat was about $350,000. And come 2025, you are thinking of upgrading or thinking of selling and changing to another property. The price you're looking at is about $780,000, and there's a profit of about $430,000. And if you have gone for another options, okay, what if you have gone for a 3-bedroom EC? At that point of time, the Vales actually launched in about 2015, and the purchase price was about 800 over 1,000. Moving forward to 2025, if you sell, you're looking at a profit of about $840,000. Now, the point of us bringing this up is not about how much profit you are making. We think what is more important is actually the value of your property. You holding a 1.6 over million property versus an 800 over 1,000 property, which one will you actually choose?
Of course, that said, in the news, you probably have seen and heard that the government is also ramping up on the BTO supply. And what does this mean? This means that the public housing will always be kept affordable, that is mentioned by our PM Wong. And the government has also taken a step further to reduce the loan to value. And that would mean that for buyers who are looking to buy a HDB, we used to be able to loan up to 90%, back in 2021, but in today's market, we are only looking at 75% loan to value. And this means that the buyer's purchasing power can be reduced because we actually have to fork out about 25% outlay.
And with that being said, some of you of course come to us and say, hey, but EC location, they are typically outside central area, whereas HDB actually offer more central locations. So we do agree with that, and it depends on your family needs. Of course, one thing we are talking about is in terms of future resale, what is the value of a property in future. So while HDB may actually offer more central location, we know they have also come up with this plus and prime classification for such HDB in all this location. So what this essentially means is your MOP now is 10 years. The minimum occupation period is now 10 years. There is a subsidy clawback when you decide to sell in the resale market. And when this comes, the resale buyers are also limited by an income ceiling. Plus, they are also limited in terms of their loan, because for HDB loan, they look at about 30% of the overall income. Whereas if you're looking at EC reselling in the market, there's a minimum occupation period of 5 years, but there is no so-called subsidy clawback. Your resale buyer doesn't have any income ceiling. And the loan eligibility, in a sense, they can actually take a higher loan since it's now based on 55% of their overall income. So what does this say? To us, actually means that there is a limitations on how much value the plus or prime HDB can be. And as compared to EC, in 5 or 10 years' time, when it's fully privatized, it is a different ball game.
That's it. If you're deciding between HDB and EC, what we wanted to share is that there's no one size fits everyone, because it is really depending on your timeline, your eligibility, cash flow, and family needs as well. So what we wanted to do in this video is actually to share with you so that you can actually understand and find out more about your numbers, understand what are your options earlier, so that you can clarify all your doubts, all your needs, and then you can actually have a clearer picture of what you're looking for. And if you want to actually really find out more, we'll be happy to walk through with you, to go through with you your options.
Yep, and that's all for today. We hope you actually, gain some more insights and some information and clarity to ECs. Do like and subscribe to our channel as we bring you more informative videos and also more case studies on the Singapore property market. See you.
Okay, let's go.